Welcome to another episode. Today's episode, I'm going to be continuing to work here on the 71 Coyote Swap Challenger. Stay tuned. All right, so just a little bit of an update here on the car. What I have done is I went ahead and installed an alternator. Now I didn't film this because there's really not too much to it, other than I ordered a alternator for a V6 for a Mustang 2014 3.7. And the difference with the 3.7 alternator is pretty much just the pulley here. On the Coyote alternators, whether you're automatic or manual, the only difference between automatic and manual is they have the clutch pulley. Is that the pulley is about 1/4 inch. It has like a flat spot, and then the grooves are sticking out. And the reason I chose the V6 one is because the alternator is the same amperage and everything. I think these are pointed a little bit different. On the V6 they're pointed this way. I think the Coyote they're pointed more down. Not too sure, but the way I did the V6, or the reason I did the V6 is, as you can see, I have my motor mount, my cross member right back here. And so if I would have known kind of ahead of time, if I would have had the alternator for the Coyote engine, if you look back at the videos, I was debating whether to move the engine backwards, which I ended up moving it backwards. That way, if you see the center of gravity here on the wheel, right, it's right here, but the engine is back, so that gives it a little bit better handling. That was my thought process. Does it really make a difference? Possibly not. But if I would have had the alternator, I would have seen, hey, that's gonna hit on the motor mount on the cross member, right, on the QA1 cross member. So I would have actually probably put the engine about 1 inch forward, and that would have cleared the alternator either way. This one, since I had to pull the alternator forward because of the pulley, because the pulley on this one is right at the edge, I did a spacer right in here, which is about 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8. And then I did one on the bottom bracket, and the back side of the bracket, I just cut it that much so it would move the alternator. And so that gave me clearance here on the back. What I did is I took off the back plastic piece, and it's hard to see, but the plastic piece that goes back here on the alternator, there's 3 bolts. I took that off and I cut some of that plastic piece off because that one's kind of makes it stick out a little bit more, and they clear. So right now I have between 1/8 and 1/4 inch of clearance between the alternator and that bracket. And now the engine's not gonna move this way, so there's no problem. If it moves this way slightly, there's nothing else it would hit. I did have to notch the frame just a little bit here so it would clear, but that's all good. So, and I went ahead and put the I replaced the idler pulley because the old one was making some noise when you spin it. I ordered a new belt tensioner, and I went ahead and got a belt and I put it on there. It looks like it's lined up okay. It looks pretty good. Once I get it started, I can see exactly, but it looks like it's gonna work just fine. So got that done. I went ahead and installed the lower hose here. So I got it all clamped on, and then installed this upper hose here to the radiator. I did cut about 2 inches off this one. That way it wasn't hitting here the cylinder head. So that's all set pretty much at this point. I did get some coolant. I'm gonna go ahead and get coolant in there. I also just put this hose on the heater outlets, just kind of like a bypass from one side to the other. I believe, because I didn't want to just cap them, because the way the water pump's circulating water, I think it helps the water circulate from one head kind of to the other. keeps it kind of even. I know even if you do the hoses to the heater core, you know, once I do that later on, you do want to put like a kind of like an H so the water still circulates. So I just did it this way. That way it circulates for now. You know, if I need to, once I do like heater and stuff, that'll be next. So coolant is pretty much ready to be added in here. And another thing that I did, that noise that we heard when we started up, it was actually the starter. So the way that this worked was, let me see here if I can do a diagram real quick, but with the starter and the flywheel, I don't know which part really wasn't correct or, you know, working right, but it was pretty much engaged. So once you start the engine, the gear kept on the flywheel, so it was making noise and kind of whistling, screeching. So this is your flex plate here. And the way the starter goes, let's see, it's kind of like that, roughly. And then this is the gear here. So normally the gear is about 1/8 of an inch away from the flywheel when it's not engaged, right? You have like the little slider here. And then once you start the engine, the gear kicks out, you know, starts it. Once you let go of the ignition, it goes back. Well, you know, once I took the starter off because it was making that noise, I measured everything, which I should have done it before, but I just figured everything was going to work. The gear was pretty much right there. The whole time it was pretty much hitting the, you know, right at the same distance as the flywheel. So once I would start it, I mean, it would kick out, but it was always kind of in the middle, so, or right at the side. So even though I let go of the ignition, it would stop the motor on the starter from turning. When it would go back this way, it was probably just there at the edge touching that it would just catch it and keep it spinning. So it was making, you know, like a grinding noise, probably the spandex here inside. You know, I'm surprised it didn't go up in smoke and whatever. But what I did is I ordered some Dorman shims. They do sell them. Power by the Hour probably sells better shims. I didn't order theirs because the shipping and they cost a little bit more, but if I had to do it again, I would order theirs. Because the Dorman ones, I had to, one of the holes was completely off, like way off. The other one I had to make it a little bit bigger because the starter has 3 bolts. And then the other side, I had to grind it down like 1/4 inch because if not, it wouldn't let the starter mount to the, you know, the transmission. So I wouldn't recommend doing the Dorman unless you're gonna really modify it to make it fit. Power by the Hour comes with 2 different thickness ones. You can put them together, which would in exchange be a little bit thicker than the Dorman by itself. But now I did try after I installed it, and there's no more noise because the starter actually is away about 1/8 of an inch, so we're good there. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So today the plan is to get the exhaust tips installed. I'm gonna have to cut the exhaust a little bit. I'm going to get the pedal installed, and I'm gonna grab the seats, at least the front seats, and see if I can get those brackets, the bolts on the brackets redone. I did find, I think Classic Industries sells the brackets for those seats. They're about $100. But if these are just way too far gone, I might order those. They come with everything, you know, the whole slider and everything assembly. So I'm glad that I found those. I can get those, but I'm gonna try to get those to work so I can get the seat in, put some coolant in here, finish putting the intake back on, and pretty much take it out on the road, go for a little test drive. I am gonna race the back because now that I put a little bit of gas and everything, as you can see, the tire's tucked in. So I think I'm gonna race it about 1 inch. The coilovers are pretty much at the low end of the adjustment, so I think about 1 inch, and then that would give it because there's not too much gas. So once I add more gas and stuff, it'll probably lower it a little bit. So I'm gonna raise that a little bit on the back. Do all those things. We'll check up as we follow along. The belt, it is the factory Coyote size, so that's the number. That's the reason I wanted to the alternator. And this alternator, I am gonna wire it as well. So I should be able to wire the power one. It's not gonna charge to the full potential, but on these alternators, they have a system where if, you know, something, like if you unplug it, it still charges some. And that's my plan for now, because they don't make like a one wire alternator that fits right in there. Well, let me rephrase that. I believe they do make some performance ones, but they're about $500. So I'll try to see if, you know, if that charges at like 13.7, which is the default, that's okay. I'll probably still always have a battery tender on this battery anyways. And then if I have some time as well, I am gonna work on getting this power steering, electric power steering installed. I have the factory bracket that it came with here from the Volvo, so I'm gonna see if I can get that installed as well, build a little bit of bracketry. It would be nice to have it somewhere up here where I can reach the reservoir, although I think this area is gonna be optimal on the fender. I don't think factory this inner fender has that hole, but even if later I have to do like a little access panel here nicely to reach in there, that's probably gonna be where I put it, but we'll see. Went ahead and filled the coolant system, our cooling system with coolant. Got some antifreeze in here, no leaks or anything. I thought I had a reservoir somewhere in my garage, like a little universal overflow tank that I was gonna use, just something that would fit here next to the radiator, but I could not find it in any of my stuff. So with that being said, I don't know if I used it. I'm pretty sure I had an extra one somewhere, but that always happens when I'm looking for something. I look through everything. I actually did organize a little bit more. Got bins up there, put some of the stuff up there. So I guess that's the good thing, but I couldn't find that reservoir that I was looking for. So I'm gonna have to get a small one, just the universal one. So I got the seats down as well. Oh, and I also installed the intake. It's probably gonna live on that side just because the hose is here. And I guess potentially I can angle it down, but just right there where it's at, it's where it's gonna fit the best for now. Like I said, I don't know if this might change later on, but I know I said the power steering pump was gonna live here with the access hole there for the reservoir, but I may have to just make that a little bit bigger, or just we'll see. You know, potentially I can get a smaller filter, something shorter, so there's room there. I can also get, I know Junior has a tube that's left over from when we redid the intake on his truck, so maybe I can put both of the tubes together and, you know, maybe just angle it this way differently. I thought it would be cool to actually, you know, like the new Challengers, use one of the headlight holes as the intake, but that'll be kind of hard here with the fenders and all that. So I can also use his tube to flip it, like I said, angle it down, and maybe put like a hole here and put the actual fender on the fender well, or the filter on the fender well, but yeah, I don't want it to be getting wet and stuff. So I think this is where it's gonna live for now. The power steering pump, they make a version of that, but that's the only one I found at the salvage yard, but they make a version that has a remote reservoir, and so I can always make the mount and everything, and then if I find one with the other reservoir, I can always swap it out, and then the reservoir can live just somewhere up here. So we'll have to see about that. Other than that, this car doesn't have fender liners or anything, so if the pump lives here, I could always probably, you know, just make like a really small hole somewhere up here, reach on the fender, take off the cap, and then do a funnel to fill it. Normally your power steering doesn't need to be refilled or anything like that really. It's unless you have a leak, so it's not something you have to be reaching in there all the time. So I'll cross that bridge when I get there. I still have to make the mount and everything. So I got the seats out. I'm gonna get ready to look at these brackets here. So well, there's that. So this one's the one that adjusts pretty much with the lever. This is the passenger seat. So this one's the one that locks and unlocks. That one just kind of goes along for the ride. And these are the bolts that are pretty much non-existent. So my plan is to unbolt this tracks and possibly from the back side put a long bolt, cut this out or grind the rest of it out, put a bolt, weld it in there, and then just use these. I mean, they have surface rust, but they're not completely rotten other than bolts. So if I do end up ordering the ones I said I found, I mean, that's worth more than the whole seat, I guess. But the upholstery on this one is not like super terrible, but it is, old. So I'm gonna take these off, see if I can get bolts in here and get those on there. I did pull down the seats just because they were up there. They just, kind of sitting there. I figure why not just put these on there. The back seat has 2 bolts on the bottom. I put some conditioner, some vinyl conditioner on there so they look decent. I was gonna put the panels as well because once I get this car running, like I said, once I have it in the road running, I'm gonna try to drive it for a while, and then the rest of the restoration is gonna have to kind of wait a little while because of not just time, but also price. So, price and metal is not too bad, but then each part that you order, you get charged about $200 shipping. And unless I go pick something up in the coast somewhere, which at the same time, if I'm gonna make the trip, I would have to buy a bunch of parts, but then that adds up, right? 400, whatever. So I'll have to kind of do it slowly, but I do want to get it running on the road so I can drive it as is. I mean, it looks kind of cool. And then I do have to get back to my Mustang. I have to paint that this year. I wanted to paint it last year, but I still need just a little bit of body work, but I need to get that painted and then finish the interior. That way that one's done. But, so I will put those panels on there. Long story short, I guess, is I'm gonna put those in there, but I do want to replace the wiring for the taillights. The wiring itself is not terrible, but it's just, if you see those wires going up there to the dome light, and then the tail light, all the little pieces are rusted and everything, so I'm gonna get new sockets. And so since I'm doing that, I'm just gonna order new wire, redo it really nice in loom, put it all the way up here. And then, I mean, I am gonna do that here soon. That way the lights work on the back. And then I'll put those inner quarter panels in there. I'll cover like the holes on the floor with maybe like tape. I do have to do something about these because if water gets in here, it's gonna go straight inside. So I'll probably put something here to kind of keep, when it rains, all the water from going all the way through to the inside. Not all of it, but it's, at least try to stop most of it. And then this is going to be parked outside, unfortunately, so maybe I'll get like a car cover that's waterproof. That way, when it rains, it just doesn't drench the inside. I'm not going to put carpet or anything, so not to worry about that. So anyways, gonna get to the seats here now, and then hopefully I can find a way to make those work. And I'll put these in here. And then actually another thing I forgot about while I was going through all my parts, I did find my fans, so I mounted those on there. as well. So I have my fan here on the front. This is the big one. It's mounted up, and then I have a smaller one here on this side, kind of. So on this side it's kind of here. We still have some area without a fan, but then this one's gonna be pushing, similar to what I did on the 67. So hopefully that keeps it cool enough. If not, I can always, I do have a bigger fan. I can always put that other bigger fan here on the inside because there's a lot of room. And then this one's pretty skinny. I can put it here on the front as a pusher instead of the small one, so I can have two big ones. But I think that might be good enough. I don't have AC or anything on here. And then the this is the transmission one I mounted last time. So all this needs to be wired as well. So a lot of small things that take a lot of time. So I'm gonna get working on those seats and then see if I can make them work. All right, so just an update here. Got the cover on the engine just because, make sure everything clears. And I actually found the reservoir for the coolant, so I went ahead and installed this here on the between the radiator support and the grill. This is access here, so I can check the level. This is kind of just a universal reservoir here, so don't look like it's the best quality here, but maybe I just wasn't lining it up. But that'll just make sure coolant doesn't drop on the floor. I got the hose connected right here, goes underneath. And then I went ahead and installed a catch can, so just tied both sides. That side goes all the way across, this side it goes in, and then it just has a filter, so I'm not gonna put it where it goes into the intake. That's vented that way, so got that all taken care of. And then here on the back I went ahead and cut the exhaust a little bit so I can install the tips. So I left them about an inch out. I just want to be able to see where it says hooker right there. Same with this side, so that's all set there. Pieces I cut off, and then I've been working on the seats, so I went ahead and took the tracks out. I believe I am going to be able to make this work. So what I did is took out the factory studs. This is what was left of it on this side anyways. The other ones, I mean, they're pretty much gone. I think there was only one, and I don't know where I left it. That was a little bit longer. I think one of them, I know this one broke when I was unbolting it. The other ones didn't have any bolts, I think. But anyways, I went ahead and got some bolts like this. That's pretty much what it is, except this one's for 5/16. I got 3/8, so it's a little bit thicker. And this one is all ready. I just had to cut the head like I did here. Just cut it so it goes in the channel. And this is coming off, but went ahead and put it through there. And then I went ahead and sanded this one down just a little bit, got the surface rust out of it. I just had to also file a little bit the square here, but it goes all the way in. And they had kind of like a washer here. I think it had just carpet attached to it, but what I'm gonna do is put the washers here, and then I'm just gonna really put a really small bead of weld right here in the washer and the bolt, and that's just gonna hold the bolt in place. Once I tighten it down, obviously this is not gonna let it spin. It'll tie down, plus it's got the square shank. But it makes it where it slides and it clears the like the bolts here. This bolts down to the seat. So I'm just gonna weld little tack here, maybe a couple, one on each side, and this will be set. Put it back in the seat. Do that. The other one, I have to still cut the bolts off. Pretty much do the same thing. It might be a little bit harder to get the bolts in there because they have, it's kind of, well, the way it is right there. So it's kind of like a little C channel. But I should be able to get them in there. So let me get these welded, and then that's gonna go back. This is the passenger seat, I believe, because the handle's on this side. And I think the holes on the floorboard are actually bigger than the 5/16 anyways, but if not, I just have to make them a little bit bigger. And then I can bolt down this seat, and I'll move forward to the driver's seat as well. All right, so a little update here. I still have a lot more wiring to get done here, but I went ahead and installed the inline fuse for the alternator and got the wire going all the way behind and around the inner fender. So right now it's behind the engine, which you won't see too much. I mean, all this gets covered, and then it goes on the inner fender, and it's gonna come back out where the alternator is. I also ran this other wire, which is a little bit thicker, and this is gonna be for the electric power steering pump that's gonna live back there. So I have the fuse holder for that as well there. And so that's gonna be there for now. When I do that firewall in the future, I may change this stuff around a little bit, not too much though. I think that's kind of where it's gonna live. Some of the wiring back here, like I said before, I'll probably change a little bit, but I just didn't want a lot of wires to go here. So the nice thing with these engines, most of the wiring is right on top of them. So that's all set there, and went ahead and, like I said, run that wire there. I'm finishing putting the end here. I was soldering the end. I'll put some heat shrink tubing here at the end, and then put it to the alternator, which is right there, is the stud for that. And then I'm gonna start figuring out where that power steering pump is gonna be able to live under here. There is some room, like I mentioned before, the hard part's gonna be for putting fluid in there, but I guess worst case scenario, I could just, turn the wheel and reach over in here and put the fluid. For now, if I do find one of those pumps that have the remote reservoir, I think that would work really well, because those have, instead of having this cap here, they have a hose with a tube, and you can put that reservoir, it's like a little square that you can put it somewhere else. Everything else looks the same, so I'll get this mounted, figure it out, everything as far as the lines are the same, and then if I do find one of those, I may change that later on. I also installed the passenger seat, so that's all bolted down and everything, and also the driver's seat, so both of them are bolted in. I do have to finish under here quite a bit more wiring. I'm gonna put the power steering pump off the switch, and then I'm gonna run some more of this thick wire for a small kind of fuse box under there, like a universal fuse box. The factory one is really rusted, and I did get most of everything working, but I did have to kind of clean some of the terminals, sand them a little bit, which, honestly, everything's gonna be switched over. So I'm gonna find a way to actually use, because I'm not gonna use this for the filter anymore, so I'm gonna see if I can cut like a piece off here to put that fuse box, and then a power distribution block similar to the one here in the engine bay, but just a little bit smaller, and that way if I need power for anything inside the car, I can use this. So the plan is, I'll have a fuse box here, so I'll use the fuse box, but if I need something that needs kind of direct battery power, I'll have this, so I don't have to keep running wires up to this main distribution block. So this will get one more going to the inside fuse box, which is gonna replace this one here. I'm gonna put a thicker one, and then I'll probably have one more coming from this one, but maybe from the inside for the fans, which are up here. So I still have to do all that. Like I said, figured cut this maybe here so I can mount it down there under the dash, and then just put that fuse block, power distribution block there. And then I do have a little switch here, switch panel, which I'll also put on there. And the plan for now is, because the way the ignition switch worked as of now for the original fuse box is when you're cranking the engine, it looks like the fuse box kind of loses power, a lot of it. And for the ECU, you can't do that. You can't have it where it loses power while you're cranking. So I'm still gonna use the original switch. I'll tap into the power, so I'll run the wire. I think I'm gonna run either this one or something a little bit thinner I have to crank the engine with the original switch, but then I'm gonna have one of these switches be a main power turn on for this fuse box, which the Holley computer will be off of here. So, and maybe, actually, because the plan is to do a relay to power this fuse box here. On top, so maybe the same, you know, do the relay to power the fuse box, but then that same relay is going to power the ECU with the switch. So just something that once I turn it on, it's on. It's not going to cut out with the ignition switch. I also did order this wire kind of harness that has 7 wires, and that's going to be used for the tail lights to replace the wiring in here. But that may be a little bit later. As of now, I do have to figure out the pedal. I'm gonna mount that fuse box back in its factory location for now. Just kind of keep it like that. I'll add the other fuse box, mount that pedal. It needs to be a little bit higher and everything, and then it's gonna be ready. So as of this video, it's, I think I have about a month and a half, really, because I entered the all-out call-out, which is going to be here at the local drag strip. I did that last year in the truck, which, you know, I got eliminated first round. I figured, because there's really fast cars running in that low category, but I entered with this car. I guess you can take whatever car at that point, but my goal is to get this car running, get it, and, you know, race it. So I need to get this all kind of done as much as I can. Even if the power steering pump's not completely hooked up, I don't have to turn it on. I'll have a separate switch for that one. But the plan is to get out, test at least once before the race day, just to see. You know, the slow class is 14.1 or slower. I'm hoping that this car is faster than that, but that would help with, you know, I don't have to like really hook or anything because I don't have to run that fast, but I do need to see how it runs. Who knows, maybe I'll run a 15. And so that's kind of the plan. Anyways, so I'm going to finish this up. Power steering pump's going to be kind of looked into, and then continue all the rest of the wiring.